Well, hello, everybody. Hi, and welcome to Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, Brad. Happy Valentine's Day, Alex, first off. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody out there watching. We are here to talk about a bit of Horizon for about, let's say 20 to 30 minutes here. We're going to, I was going to say ramble, but mostly chat. Ramble would be for another thing. We have all played it. We're still early on. I don't think there's going to be a lot of spoilers here. And by early on, I mean probably under 10 hours. This is a kind of a slow mover at first. So let's just jump right into it.
I think the one spoiler warning I would give is we may just talk very openly about the previous game, which
sure. Yeah.
had some pretty major reveals in it. In fact, I would argue the reveals in that game were kind of the point of the whole game.
Yeah.
So if you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn and don't want to know what happens in that, maybe be careful.
Yeah. If you haven't played that, this game kind of just picks up right after, like minutes after, well, kind of months after, but the story-wise, let's just say minutes after the first one. So it references it constantly. And actually, one of the things that it does right off the gate is puts you in this kind of linear tutorial mission, which tries to fill in, I think, some of the backstory from the first game, but it's very long. And before you get to the open world, and kind of sets you up for what you're about to do. And what did you guys think of the setup?
Okay.
It's very long.
It's very long. It has that same kind of Dying Light 2 thing of we have a long stretch where we need to show you everything. And I think this is maybe slightly more successful at having that long stretch, but also it does go on too long. The final encounter you end up having in that section is not really that enthralling. And there really is definitely a sense of like, when do I get to the open part of this world? Because I feel like I am stuck here.
Yeah. And it does a thing where that feels like that mission is completely pointless. Because once you wrap it up, you get the real story for what you're about to do. And it was like, well, I guess that was a kind of a waste of time other than to introduce you to Aloy again, one or two mechanics in the game, and get you moving on what is supposed to be the open world. And you kind of do jump into the open world there after a bit of a cutscene and credits. So I would say it's about, my counter said about 2 hours to credits. Yeah.
Yeah, roughly.
2 hours to lay title card. 2 hours to open world. 2.5.
It's a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna put some footage up in the background here while we chat a bit.
The reason we're doing this format is because the current video embargo is fairly limited in terms of like what we can show until the game is closer to coming out. So we're just going to show you what we can.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Here are some PS5 Horizon Forbidden West footage. So you get some new traversal mechanic. You get this thing called a pole caster, which is kind of a grappling hook.
It's a yanking device.
Yeah. Do you remember? Did you read the audio? I mean, the text log where the Oseram have a way worse name for it. I'm trying to remember what they call it. It's literally they call it like a yank and pull or something like that.
Yeah, and like if you remember from Horizon, the first one, it's a little like Ariel, Little Mermaid. Like she likes naming stuff, tools, and all sorts of weird business. So this is a little bit of just kind of Aloy doing side quest stuff, and you're dumped into this open world, and there's a lot of side quest stuff to take on.
Yeah, the first area is this area called the Daunt, which has a couple of cities in it, and it's kind of where you sort of get into the first little, meat nugget of the story. But like, it is populated with like, here is a list of all the things you're going to do a bunch in this game, and here's a bunch of them right out of the gate.
Yeah, like you start picking missions up, and it's like you get within the span of like 20 minutes, you've already got a main quest. You get what they call a side quest. You also get what they call errands, like those were in the first game, from what I remember. But then you go to your quest log, and if you look at the sidebar, there are like 20 literally different categories of side activities you can pick up.
Yes.
And so I've probably still only found like a fourth of those, I would say. But like I didn't play it. Did you guys? I sat down at the table of the in-game strategy game. Which I forget it's called something Machine Strike.
Yes.
Which I think is maybe this game's Gwent, is what they're doing. Like it seems full on Gwent. Like they literally say, like, hey, there are machine strike masters all over the world who want to play with you. You need to collect pieces to master this strategy game against them, and it's a full-on chess like kind of thing.
I did
so
do it.
Yeah.
I did play. I played the tutorial of it, and it was like, it's all right.
Yeah.
You collect pieces. They gave you your free set, like everything else, right? And then you go have to collect pieces.
Yeah, there's melee challenges. There's like old world locations to line up in your magic vision. There's a lot of punctuation on the map. There are a lot of exclamation marks and question marks.
Yeah, this is me trying to figure out a way to get up to a cliff here and trying to see if you can land in this water and not take damage. Let me skip to some of the. Oh, there's a bit of the map trying to find it. Let me skip to some of the resolution performance stuff because I think it's kind of interesting.
So there's really only 2 graphics modes.
Yeah, so you have resolution. This is resolution. So this is kind of your looking pretty mode. And I think this game does look really pretty. I think it's and it runs okay. I think you will see a big difference in the frame rate when you get to performance.
Performance mode is basically a locked 60, and it still looks very good to me. I think like the visuals are the one just like unabashed success for me so far in this game. Like I think it looks absolutely fantastic, and it runs super well.
On the technical side, I would agree with that. But I will say one thing: I've only been playing this in the resolution mode because I find like the weird default motion blur stuff they do around the character on the frame rate mode to be kind of bad, and also
it's weird.
There is a toggle for the motion blur.
Yeah, there is. I'm just saying the default setting for it just kind of put me off. But like, while I like the technicals of the visuals, I really, even more so than the first game, I'm really just finding the art style and like, character design and all that stuff just in this game to be really off-putting.
That first area that you go to, that first town, everybody looks like a huge dork. They are dressed in the dorkiest costumes imaginable.
They all look like they're trying to live their like biggest Final Fantasy like side character drag fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
It's let me see. I think I have a shot of one of the characters here that you talk to in this mission here. I'll try and jump ahead.
All right, I've got a couple here also that I've got queued up. I think Alex would probably agree.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a lot of this, like, but even more leather and bondage in some of the other characters with metal bits.
Like, what is going on here?
A lot of
got protect your neck.
Of course. Here, I've got a couple here. I genuinely think that the thing I just queued up is like maybe who Alex is actually talking about.
We're in the neighborhood here for sure.
But I mean, like this guy is like
definitely thinking of.
Yeah, but this guy is like a pompous religious figure. Like he is kind of supposed to be absurd and overwrought, I think. But like, I don't know. I'm coming at it more from a graphics technical perspective, though. I think like the facial animation, all the performance capture stuff is like absolutely fantastic. Like these are some of the best human characters I think I have seen.
It's very good, and like they seem pretty distinct for the most part. Like you don't get a lot of this. You definitely, I have to give them credit. You don't get a lot of the Bethesda. There are 5 models in this game, and everybody has a different haircut and different clothes. It is very well realized, but it's it's got this kind of corny, dorky feeling, that especially in the beginning, where like everybody looks like they, were picking things out of the Horizon Comic-Con bin for a little bit in the early. You get better costumes later on.
Yeah, but it's what Drew Homan in the chat just said. Like it's not this pompous guy in particular. It's the guy next to him. It's this guy here. Like the problem is that it just all feels like so over designed that nobody looks like they could actually move in any of this. Like it feels like it's geared toward cosplayers in a way that is not meant to evoke anything like a thing a person would wear for any reason.
It's got like a Doctor Who vibe, right? It's got like this like, hey, here's some stuff we had to put together, for scenery, but it's a video game, so it's not real. So it is it's just weird. It's
speaking of being a video game, like this guy's like, hey, you might want to go craft some acid arrows. Like the number of times that characters have talked in basically mechanics language, like they talk about workbenches and crafting and like here's a pullcaster, and they all talk about it as if you are just gaining the abilities. It's like they are practically reading from the item description. In some cases, it's kind of weird.
And there's a lot of there are a decent amount of mechanics. I'm gonna see if I can pull up some of the combat here, because I mean, if you've played Horizon, the first one, you're going to be familiar with how this whole thing goes. But
and I will help clear a path.
Also, I think the one thing that bugs me about Aloy is she's from the start of this game, all of the wonder is gone. She is just completely jaded and just put upon with everything.
She has had enough of this shit.
I'm torn on that whole aspect of the story, that framework, because like on one level I like that people acknowledge what she did in the first game. I mean, she's everybody literally calls her like the savior of Meridian. She's known as like the hero who saved humanity. People are like literally falling at her feet everywhere she goes. And at first she seemed uncomfortable with that, which seemed like a decent character touch. The more I get into it, the more I feel like she's just like using that to her advantage now, which I think is a little more off-putting. You know what I mean? Like, she's just kind of, I don't know. Does that make sense?
It's the creative choices for sure, like as far as like the way they're framing her within the story, but I also think some of it is the performance. Like it's just, it feels like the direction for her was like, okay, every other line read needs to start with a deep pain sigh that lets you know how tired of this you are.
Right. Yes, she is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and like everybody wants to join her, and she's just constantly saying like, you can't come with me, and it's like, some people could come with you. Like this doesn't have to be your thing. It's weird. In the first one, she had this sense of exploration and wonder, and this one is very much a sense of duty and sacrifice, which is just different. It's just the tone is different. Here's a bit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I was going to set this up. Here is just some combat. It is pretty similar to the first one. You will be using kind of elemental weapons and trying to knock stuff off of the baddie robots. And you lose a lot of this, pretty much everything you had in the first game in terms of being able to override robots.
Yeah, I mean, you can tame mounts from the outset, at least, thankfully.
Yeah, but your override, you still have to go find. She keeps mentioning going to try and find cauldrons, but I have not stumbled upon any yet. And again, I'm like maybe 6-7 hours in at this point.
And at this point of the game, like there really hasn't been a ton, at least from my view, like a ton of use for the like melee. Like almost everything I've been doing has been a lot of ranged, and then when things get a little bit too hairy, I just throw in the melee where needed. But like, the range combat is good. Like that is what the first game did well, and I feel like here it still feels pretty good. I just don't feel like I really enjoy the melee at all.
The melee is very slow. I mean, a lot of the enemies have like very darty attacks. They'll just kind of pounce at you, so you have to be very careful because there's such a wind up on it. But like, I am still kind of torn even on the range combat. I thought the combat framework in the first game had a ton of potential. I thought it was super cool in concept, but that it was a little clunky in execution. And it's basically unchanged in that sense here. Like, I still find myself running toward the camera a lot because I want to keep track of what the enemies are doing, but also create space and like get room to wind up shots and hit weak points. And then like I'll run into a tripwire or some obstacle I didn't see coming because like you're running at the camera, right? And like, you're still firing projectiles that have a lot of travel time on them at very small targets that tend to like jerk and flinch around a lot. And so there's something still a little bit imprecise about the way the combat works to me that I had hoped they would tighten up a little bit, but it really feels almost exactly the same. I will say there's, I don't know if you got any footage of it. There's one nice quality of life feature where when you scan the enemies, you can tag them like before.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to cycle through all their weak points in action. You don't have to go into a full screen menu to look at all their weak points. You can just like D-pad through them, and you can actually tag specific parts really easily. I want to say I think that's quite a bit more streamlined than it was.
I was trying to show that you kind of had here if you want to see it. Like
that
menu at the bottom.
You can see at the top there. You can just D-pad through all the different parts of the enemies. and just kind of keep track of. Yes, like that stuff is a lot easier to handle. That is one nice improvement to the combat that I really enjoyed.
And you can knock off components and kind of.
And sometimes you have to. Like there are missions that ask you, like, "Hey, get a horn from this thing," you know. So you have to knock that off and make sure that it doesn't like explode.
Yeah, you can charge up your weapon. The knockdown is pretty good and very useful. I've been specking in the infiltrator class. I do have some footage here of the menus. I don't know if I pulled it out, but the tech tree is pretty dense.
Yeah, there's like 7 individual tech trees, I think.
And you get kind of a lot. You get these like super abilities for like if you unlock enough abilities in a specific tree, you get these active abilities that you can use. Like in the stealth one, it's like an active cloak that you can use, and it uses up some points. It's it's pretty dense. Like there's a decent amount of actually. Let me see. I'll go back to the town here because there's a decent amount of upgrade stuff too, and this was in the first one as well. Let's skip ahead to food, kind of for stat buffs, which I don't remember that in the first one.
It's 2022, your open world game. Gotta have cooking.
Not only that, like it needs to have a cooking montage scene that is a la Monster Hunter.
Of course,
or at least the first time you meet that chef guy, they do it.
But it's growing on me. I think they kind of jump you into the deep end of the pool pretty quickly after that initial 2 hours. Like it goes from like almost 0 to 110 pretty quickly. Like you have nothing really to do except climb towers in the beginning, and then you immediately start filling in the open world with a bunch of side quests, and can get easily distracted off the main quest. Like again, I tried to pick up all the side quest stuff, and you do get points at a pretty rapid clip for dropping in upgrades, and the upgrades do seem meaningful. But I have just been fetching people's shoes for 7 hours, like hey, this thing, that thing, this thing, for a while.
Let me be absolutely clear here. I am the sort of person that absolutely gets dragged into doing side stuff in open world games constantly. Like I will do the bad, boring side quests all the time because my brain just wants it. And I'm telling you, that is not the way to play this game.
Yeah, it's they're pretty good as well. I don't know, you can see on the map there. There's a icon I have checked there. They're pretty good at letting you know if you can't do a thing yet. So I've hit about 3 things that you can scan, and like I don't have the gear to do this. There was one spot I hit where I was swimming, where I drowned like 3 times, and then finally they were like, "You can't do this. Like you can't. You will need an upgrade." This part was weird because you can't run past those people.
There are a handful of invisible walls here and there.
Yeah, it's can be a little funky. For as big as this is, it's gonna have some rough edges, and it definitely does in terms of the scaling, climbing. Sometimes you can catch yourself in a crag.
Some of the character interactions with the environment are a little bit messy here and there. I mean, the first game was the same way.
It's pretty big though. Let me see if I can show off some of the actual climbing. Oh, this is the workbench. So you can upgrade your stuff. I have been pretty apprehensive about spending too many upgrade points just because I know in the last game you just get different weapons. So you have limited resources. So
I think most of the resources you see, like metal shards, braided wire, stuff like that. This is generally stuff that can be farmed from enemies, I think, for the most part, from what I've seen. So you can invest the time if you really just want to upgrade everything.
And there's a thing called green. There's like a green. I might show it here. Crystal thing that seems a little more rare for getting a higher level upgrades. But you kind of spend your points. You got to hold down X for a long time. That's their mechanic for upgrading. And I'm never sure exactly how far if I've held it down long enough or not. I haven't gotten used to holding it down. It just fills up a little bar. Let me show the climbing, because Brad, I was going to ask you if it's new in the scanning the edges of things. Is that a new thing with the focus to look for climbable
little
points?
highlights on all the climbable stuff? Yes, I believe that is new.
Because
I
that's
don't
pretty
remember that
neat.
from the first game. Like, it's a nice little kind of accessibility feature.
This is me
Essentially, like, you
scanning.
can see a little X there on that one handhold. You'll see some of it here. It essentially paints, you've got your kind of augmented reality computer vision stuff from the first game again. And it'll essentially paint UI cues on anything you can climb on that are pretty explicit. So if you're not entirely sure where that, because it's full on Uncharted climbing, right? Like, it's not, it's absolutely not, despite it being 2022, it does not climb anywhere like freeform exploration. It is extremely Uncharted style. Here are the handholds that we designed for you, and these are what you're. So,
every climb is a puzzle.
Yes, that's the grappling hook. That's the pullcaster. That's kind of the first major new tool that you get. That's a weird one. You can't just use it from the ground. You have to jump.
Yeah.
Before you can activate it. So I find situations where, like, the thing I need to grapple to is about level with me, so I just do a little in-place hop and then do it from midair because you can't just trigger it from the ground. It's kind of weird, but
right. You don't shoot and aim it. You just double jump.
Right. And there's also there's a timing element on those where you can hit, I think it's circle right before you touch the thing you're about to land on, and it'll make you kind of shoot past it up into the air.
That's me falling down. Let me see if I can. I must have a better mountain climbing thing here. There's also wall jumping, which was a little weird. You can bounce back and forth between parallel walls to jump around, which was new to me. And so I'm just gonna jump around. Oh, see, there it is. That's all that highlight stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'll fade with time. If you get sick of looking at it, you can just wait for it to go away, but it is pretty handy in some cases.
Here's one of those things that's like, you can't do this yet. Come back when you could do this.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that particular one. That is like full-on Metroid style.
Yeah. So I found about 3 of those things: the metal flowers, that thing, and the underwater business. Here's some of the ranged combat. This is where I put most of my points, because I like the range stuff. I like a lot of the bow stuff. They do throw a lot at you out of the gate. Like, you can go to the vendor, I think in the second city, and just buy the thing that ties people down, the rope thing, the slingshot, all the stuff that took you the entire Horizon Zero Dawn game to fill out that entire wheel. You can pretty much buy at the second store, and if you kind of don't know how to use that stuff, I think it could be overwhelming. Like, even the trip caster where you're setting up traps, if you're not used to it, they give you a quick tutorial, but you've got a lot at your disposal, and learning the elemental stuff can be a little overwhelming.
It's a large toolbox, and the elemental stuff in particular is just like everything you can think of, and like 5 that you haven't thought of. It's the obvious stuff like like acid, fire, ice. Like the basics. And then I forget. I've kind of already forgotten some of the names of the others, but there are a lot of different damage types that you need to keep track of.
There's that jump.
So that's kind of how you're always using the grappling hook, which is fine. I mean, it works. It's a little bit goofy. I guess we should probably save like deep dive on the story stuff for the podcast this week once we get a little deeper in. I am kind of waiting for the story to jump off in a way that is that feels propulsive. It's going to push me forward. I feel like the setup at the beginning of the game is pretty standard video game plot of there is a poison creeping across the land and you're the only one that can fix it, and you need to go find the MacGuffin that can do that. So yeah, we'll get into it more on the podcast.
We'll go deeper.
This is just kind of give people a taste of what we've been doing here.
I just want to show that there is human combat. It's funny because in most of the combat power-up things, they in the tech tree, they have little videos, and a lot of the time it's just showing you fighting humans, and you just don't fight humans for a really long time. It's a lot of robotic animal fighting. And I don't know, like, Alex, you did finish the first Horizon, right?
No, I didn't even get close. Like, I was kind of put off by the whole thing at a certain point, and I chalked that up to maybe just, the proximity it came out to other open world games, and maybe just not feeling, the vibe of it. But like this one,
let I'm sorry, I didn't go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm just gonna say it's like this one. I feel like I'm feeling it even harder. Like it's just.
Sorry, like talking about other open, like you mentioning other open world games, just reminds me. Like, you remember the first game where it came out, and then Breath of the Wild came out like 3 weeks later or something, and like, despite what other open world games have done to move the genre forward in different ways since then, like this very much feels like more of the first game with some new stuff, but it's very iterative, incremental new stuff, right? It's some new gadgets, it's new weapons and stuff like that, but like and some quality of life stuff. But so far from what I've seen, like the basic framework is very much still that same style of open world game,
and which is big. I think for me, it's going to come down to, and this is probably what I'll get into more on the podcast as I play some more before it, is the story hook, because the story hook in the first game was really the propellant for me. Like,
it was super effective.
Like, I honestly, as I was going through this game, felt a sense of, not sadness isn't the right word, but knowing why and how and all the reasons these animals are out there and what their purpose, the robotic stuff is such a cool reveal, and it's so interesting to find out what's going on out there. And they go over a little bit of it, but not enough, I think, in the setup for this game.
Yeah, there is kind of an info dump movie at the beginning that is literally just, here are the plot beats of the first game, all in 2 minutes. But
I think if you're going to play this game and haven't played the first one, it's probably worth your time to either watch a video recap that goes into some depth about the world and the state of the world, or read a Wikipedia article or something. Like, you need a little more information.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first game's still definitely worth playing, despite my kind of mild misgivings about its design. Like, the story is very good and interesting, and pretty intriguing. And like, it got a PS5 patch to run better. It is out on PC. It has been out on PC for a while. Like, I think it's still worth circling back to that first one if you're interested. Because partially because, like, I can't say where the story in this one is going, but so far there is dramatically less intrigue to what's going on for me in this one than there was in the first one.
And it also just relies extremely heavily on the first one, like even with its what seems like its main narrative hook. We're gonna talk about this a lot more on the podcast this week, and kind of get into more on the story and stuff. But I'll say quickly here, my initial impressions were not great, but it's growing on me. Like, it's as I kind of go in and flesh out more of the repertoire and see more areas and talk to more people, I just need Aloy to not feel like everything is such a chore for everything. Like, just commit all the way. Just come on. I mean, you don't have to be happy about the end of the world. It's fine. But like, boy, she like not really rolls her eyes, but is that sigh every, what do I have to do? What's your issue? And also, like,
it just makes me want a deep sigh.
It's like, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why somebody can't come along with her. She has told like 3 people now that they cannot come along with her. And it's like, somebody could definitely just come along.
She's a loner,
Yeah.
She grew up alone. She was without community or family.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of it is a little trite. So.
She knows she's gonna be wearing really dorky outfits and just doesn't want anybody to see her. I've got to wear this outfit for the stat buffs, and I know it makes me look like a huge dork. And if I have to wear perforated metal discs over my eyes, then I don't want anybody to see me doing it. Thank you. Brad, Alex, we're gonna end this one here.
Yes,
but we're gonna come back in just a few minutes here and do Alexy Quest. So if you're watching the VOD of this or the recording of this, know that there is more in the Nextlander repertoire today. But we're going to fade down, and then we're going to come back up in a little bit here. So stick around in just a couple of minutes for Alex playing Mass Effect Andromeda Part 2. And tune in for the podcast to hear more thoughts on Horizon Forbidden West coming out this week. I believe reviews are up. A lot of reviews are up today. So
Yes.
I'll be curious to see some of that as well. Thanks, everybody. See you in a little bit. I'm going to take everything down. Stick around. I'm just going to stop it so that we can get a clean archive. We're going to switch around some of the info, and we're going to come right back up. So don't go anywhere. We're going to raid ourselves.
Yes.
Right. See you in a second.